Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Forza Italian Football Podcast, a midweek round of fixtures this Serie A, the first midweek round of the season. So, Kev, welcome back. I'm sure you're very, very happy to be back with me again for what is, I think, the third time this week, the fourth time still to come this week, and then, of course, the Sunday pod still to come again. So, welcome back. How are you keeping?
I'm good. It's like I've never been away.
It does kind of feel like that, doesn't it? And I would imagine that by the time we're recording the Patreon preview pod, it will feel even more like that. But the midweek round of Serie A has come and gone. It was played over 3 days just to make things as complicated, as long drawn out as possibly as was possible, really. It started on Tuesday evening. Bologna-Genoa played at a 2-2 draw at the Dallara. Inter beat Fiorentina 3-1. Atalanta beat Sassuolo 2-1. Then we had Juventus beating Spezia 3-2 in quite an exciting game in Liguria there. Salernitana came from behind to draw 2-2 with Verona. Milan saw off Venezia 2-0. Empoli beat Cagliari 2-0. And then on Thursday evening, Napoli, I guess they hammered Samp 4-0 really at Marassi. Lazio and Torino played out a 1-1 draw. It took a late Ciro Immobile penalty to seal even a point for the Biancocelesti. And then Tammy Abraham led Roma to a 1-0 win at home against Udinese. Just a quick reminder that we are on Patreon now. So do head to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football. We are releasing previews of every single round of Serie A, which is why Kev and I are kind of already sick of each other this season. And it's only match day 5. There's a weekly newsletter going out there as well. There are bonus podcasts for the Champions League, bonus podcasts for Italian national team matches. There are a lot of bonus podcasts, and we have a lot of exclusive interviews which we've lined up and are ready to come when there's not enough football to fill the weeks. So there's a lot going on. We've got €2, €5, and €10 tiers. So do please head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football and support the site for whatever you can afford and get some pretty good things in return as well. Oh, there's also some free gifted merchandise too, so there's plenty over there to keep you all interested. Anyway, Kev, back to the Serie A. Where shall we start? I'm tempted to start because we're a few games in now. We can do what we usually do and start at the top, right? And at the top of the Serie A table at the moment, we've got Napoli. Luciano Spalletti's Napoli. Victor Osimhen scored twice. Fabiano Ruiz scored one of the others. And Zielinski, your friend and mine, scored the fourth to kill things off at Marassi. I expected Samp to put up a bit more of a fight, considering before this game, Roberto D'Aversa was talking, saying how this Napoli team have no flaws. We need to be perfect. We can't give them a sniff. And in reality, Kev, they were anything but perfect.
Yeah, and Samp have got the game against Inter that they can compare it with as well, where Inter went to the Marassi and Samp really did give them the game and gave them a bit of a fright. Obviously, Inter got away over a 1-1 draw. But yes, Napoli just look so dominant at the moment. They are clearly all clicking, which is quite rare at the start of a season when there's not been much of a break. Obviously, back off a long year that was dragged out before that as well. So it's they've always had the talent there, but yeah, it's quite surprising to see them doing so well at the moment.
Victor Osimhen is having a good time lately. Obviously, he had his complications when he joined Napoli. There was an early injury after some really impressive weeks, having signed for 70 million, I believe it was. Then he got injured. Then while he was injured, he was at a party and caught COVID from the party probably. And it just looked like maybe he was kind of shot into this position of fame, maybe, that he wasn't quite ready for, but he seems to have gotten things together. And we spoke about him last season. I remember watching his debut here in Parma, and then a couple of weeks later, he tore Atalanta apart. And we're now seeing the potential that we knew was there, right? He's a top class player, and if he can continue in this sort of form, you'd have to say that there's probably no limits to what Napoli can achieve, at least domestically, this season.
Yeah, I questioned how much they spent on him originally. I think you'd be more worried if we hadn't seen signs last year of just what he could do. I think he had a little blip this year, having being relatively harshly treated and getting sent off. Obviously, that was reduced to just one game, but he brings kind of a youthful exuberance. So he's only 22 years old, and that's going to be something difficult to cope with. I know he's come from France, from Lille, so I had to remember them for a moment. But yeah, everybody seems to thrive off of the energy that he gives the team, and he could really spearhead them to certainly Champions League this year. I'm already sort of questioning if I made an error by not putting him in my top 4 during our early preview.
You look at this, and it's easy to forget, which is quite a compliment to not only Osimhen, but Spalletti and the rest of this Napoli team, that they're doing this without Dries Mertens. And if you'd said to me last year, or basically any other year in recent memory, that Napoli will be 5 from 5 to start the season under a new coach without Dries Mertens, there's no way I'd have thought it possible. But he's not there, and Napoli are top of the league, and Spalletti has just come in and taken what were, I think it's fair to say, some pretty solid foundations laid by Gennaro Gattuso, and he's taken them onto another level. And this team, it looks like it's built for Spalletti. You've got Anguissa there, who's come in and he's making a big difference, alongside Fabian Ruiz, who we've seen time and again on his day is arguably the best central midfielder in Serie A. The problem has been getting consistency out of him. Obviously, Nicola Barella is up there too, so don't start moaning, people. But you take the point. This is a Napoli team who have class individuals, arguably in every line of the pitch, from attack to Osimhen, Insigne, midfielder Ruiz, Anguissa potentially, Zielinski. We know how much you like him. And then at the back, there's Koulibaly, and if they can get Rachmani to be playing the way he played for Verona before he moved to Napoli. Kev, I know you're talking about them as being Champions League contenders, but in this season of all seasons, they should dare to dream that little bit higher.
Yeah, absolutely. We've not got the dominant Juventus that we've had for the last decade. Inter have had issues over the summer, but largely financial. On the pitch, they look as sound as they did last season. I think if they were racing into sort of this perfect start that they've had, Napoli, just by kind of smashing a few lower league sides or teams that we suspect will be in the lower reaches of the league later in the season. But they've had a hard-fought victory against Juventus. They had a late win against Genoa, a team that will be languishing towards the bottom half of the table. But again, there's some character there in these first 5 games, and it is, only 5 games. I know you mentioned we can now start to look at the table. I remember many moons ago that they never published league tables until 6 games in minimum in the UK. I don't know if that happened in Italy, and you're too young to know if that did happen. But yeah, the win, they haven't just brushed aside on paper weaker sides, and they look like they've got and there's probably still plenty of players there that are knocking around from when they nearly took a title off of Juventus a couple of years ago. So while people will say that they haven't got kind of title winning experience, they've got experience of title races, and that could prove crucial towards the end of the season. Not that I'm wishing the season away.
No, I take what you're saying about tables, and to be perfectly frank with you, the only time I ever make reference to a league table before Christmas is on the podcast for something or to sign off in a match report. I take absolutely nothing from looking at a league table until everyone has played everyone at least once, because I just don't see the point, to be perfectly honest with you. And yeah, you're right. I am too young to remember those days, but I've heard my dad talking about them before. Okay, so there you go.
Thanks.
But yeah, I mean, you said it. You said it wasn't me. Let's move swiftly on, though, shall we? Because Inter went away to Florence. Fiorentina, who have, of course, been very good for most of the 5 games they've played so far this season, having played against Roma and Inter and Atalanta already. They've not had the kindest of starts, but they went 1-0 up against Inter here. But Inter do what champions do, and within 3 second half minutes, Matteo Darmian and Edin Dzeko had scored and Inter were ahead. And then even Perisic scored late on to win it after Nico Gonzalez had been sent off for La Viola. But Inter, they didn't have as much of the ball as Fiorentina. The rest of the statistics were pretty even, but you look at the score and it seems quite comfortable for Simone Inzaghi's team. They just keep winning.
Yeah, I would have liked to have watched this game in full. I only caught the highlights. There was certainly Fiorentina had the better of the first half, and Handanovic sort of rolled back the years with a couple of saves. But I think maybe if they got a second goal before the break, Inter might not have rallied as well as they had, and they also scored quite early in the second half. I think it was only 6 or 7 minutes in when Darmian equalised, and I think then that is where Fiorentina, probably some of the old doubts sort of crept in, and hopefully they will continue like they are, and they'll have a better season than previous years. But yeah, I think when Inter have got that experience, it's good to. It's good. It's gonna sort of certainly stand them in good stead for the rest of the year. The Gonzalez sending off, it did come before the third goal, and I think that kind of probably added to the concerns of the players, or the lack of belief that they could go and get an equaliser. But to get a yellow card for requesting that the referee book whoever it was that he had a sort of tangle with, and then to clap the referee is just stupid. I think he's 22, maybe got away with that in Argentina, where he was signed from. But yeah, it didn't help them. What I did wonder might have helped them was Handanovic playing in what looked like identical colours to the rest of the outfield players as well, which just annoyed me a little bit. It's just bizarre. When I watched a couple of corner kicks go in, I just wasn't sure where Handanovic was. But that's just me with my my kit crimes.
No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because they're not allowing clubs to wear green going forward for apparently television purposes. So why would they let a goalkeeper wear almost the same color as his outfield players when that can actually have an impact on what happens on the pitch with I suppose mistaken identity with referees can now be undone with VAR, right? So maybe that's something we're going to see of it, but I just don't know why you'd have that. It just didn't make any sense.
I think it doesn't help you if you're on the Inter side, actually, because if in your peripheral vision you see somebody coming out, particularly at a corner, and you think it's one of your defenders, and you're all going up for a header together, you're not going to, and then before you know it, you've got a scenario where you've just flicked it past your goalkeeper. Whereas if you can see this big, huge yellow object or red object or whatever he's in, it will help you identify the goalkeeper on your team. So more for them for allowing him to do it.
Well, that's part of the reason why goalkeepers. I remember when Petr Cech at Chelsea started wearing a horrendous luminous yellow shirt, and it was because of that very reason. So players, both on the team and opposing attacking players, could see where he was really clearly because of the color of it. If a player was going through one-on-one, they'd always know where the goalkeeper was, and that wasn't necessarily a bad thing because they were aware of his presence rather than just being calm going through on goal. So I don't quite get it. I want to talk about even Perisic because he was I don't know if you saw this, Kev. He was at the San Siro on Wednesday night, and I don't know why I think this is strange, but it is, isn't it? Because Inter played in Florence on Tuesday. Milan were at home to Venezia on Wednesday, and Perisic was there. And I just found it quite odd.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know his home situation. I think if I was single and probably getting free entry to football in the way I like to consume as much football as possible, I would probably do exactly the same thing. He also may have a family and a partner and may have had an argument, and just the closest thing for him to go to was to go straight to the club, because I imagine he can't nip out to the cinema without getting sort of hassled. So maybe he wanted some time to himself and thought, well, the best way I can get that is in some very nice seats provided by the club at the stadium that he plies his trade in. So
Who's providing those seats though?
Well, I'm sure they don't mind, letting an odd, it maybe he joined one of the Milan players that weren't playing, because there's plenty of those. I've seen all the videos going around about them all celebrating one of the 2 goals that they scored. It reminds you how many players Milan actually have out injured at the moment. But yeah, I don't know. I would probably do the same as Perisic, but just don't know the reasons why.
Fair enough. No, it was quite strange, because I saw him sitting there and I thought, hang on. It's not unusual to see him sitting in the stands at San Siro, but he plays for the other team and they're not here.
Do we think they haven't cancelled Çalhanoğlu's old pass and he's lent it to Perisic for the weekend?
Yeah, quite possibly. That's good. I like that very much as a concept. Talk about Milan then, because they didn't go anywhere. They hosted Venezia at San Siro and they struggled, I think it's fair to say, for the first half. Then Pioli made some changes and that very much changed the course of the game. Theo Hernandez came on, made a big difference, scored, assisted. Salamakers came on, assisted. Kessie, Tomori both came on, and Pietro Pellegrini came on for his debut later than some of the reports in Italy thought it was going to happen, but he came on and he got his debut. But you've got to give credit, I suppose, to Pioli in that he made some changes, he rested some players, and he still got the results, but only by bringing the good players off the bench. So I don't know how much credit we're going to give him for this.
Yeah, it was a very sort of flat performance. I think I'm trying to decide on whether it was the players that were on the pitch weren't good enough, and it shows that there's a lack of depth, or whether the players on the pitch, regardless of whether they were usual starters or reserves, looked at Venezia and thought, we're Milan, we're at home, we'll brush these aside easily enough. I think they could have been in more trouble had we not had the sort of 5 substitutions, because obviously not every major European league is still allowing 5 substitutions. So it almost pushes someone like Pioli into taking the chance on dropping a lot of players. He knows he can do that. It is a bit odd, just kind of when you think about it logically, that he bring on 2 defenders, and Salamakers at the same time. So Theo Hernandez and Tomori came on, and that's what's changed the game. Usually you're bringing on 2 defenders when you're worried that they're going to nick a goal. And I did comment on Twitter about that actually. But then obviously Hernandez played a crucial role in his run to the back post to provide the cross for Diaz to score the first, and then obviously he drove in the second quite late on. But you'd like to think, because they're professionals, they haven't underestimated Venezia, so maybe it actually shows us that the depth there for Milan isn't quite there.
Is there not something to be said though for the fact that this is a midweek round of fixtures coming after a Serie A game, coming after a Champions League game, coming after a Serie A game, coming after an international break, with 3 sets of fixtures rather than 2, which is all coming after a European Championship, which came after a season and a half condensed into a year. And maybe players are just a little bit tired now, even though it's the beginning of the season. They, in theory, shouldn't be, but it's very understandable if they are.
Yeah, possibly. They had probably quite a psychologically draining game as well, taking Juventus on at the weekend. Again, they were a little bit poor in places there, certainly first half. So, it could be that they're just start of the season starting to grind a little bit on them physically and mentally. And you kind of just then need another full week between games, which you're not going to get because you've got Champions League after this next weekend of fixtures.
Yep, it's going to be probably Christmas when these players can get a little bit of a rest. And then
Milan have got a very strong group as well. That's something, you haven't got that rest against, say, a Genk or aside from one of the lesser leagues, their Champions League group's very, very strong. So I think, they're going to have to be mindful of that because teams like Inter, Napoli might just pull away ever so slightly.
Yeah, for sure. That Milan group in the Champions League is a bit of a joke, to be honest. It's the term group of death is one that I don't like that often, but if it's applicable to any group in this year's Champions League, it's definitely that one. Spezia, where I'm off to this weekend, Kev. I'll be heading over to Liguria on Saturday for Spezia Milan, but let me tell you, Trenitalia are not doing me any favors here because the game's at 3:00, and I thought, great. From Parma to Spezia, there's a direct train line because it's just straight across. Usually to get to Liguria is a bit difficult, but you can get to Spezia. So I thought, lovely. There's one train from Parma to Liguria in a day, and it leaves Parma at 7:00 in the morning. So I'll be in Spezia from 9, waiting for the match. So what I think I might do for our lovely patrons is just take a little trip to Cinque Terre, take some nice photos and pop them in the newsletter and then I can show you what you need to come to Spezia for, right? Because that's what I was trying to tell you to do at the end of last season. So
yeah, well, we were booked to go to the derby in Genoa in the May, and we were gonna, Spezia were at home, so we were gonna go down. And it's foul that it's the same bank holiday this year. The first British bank holiday in May is the Genoa Sampdoria derby again, and Spezia at home. So that is the plan.
Lovely.
To do exactly what we were doing 1 year.
Lovely.
1 year
well,
later.
I'll go and I'll sound the place out for you. I've been to Cinque Terre a couple of times. It's a gorgeous part of the world. So when I realized I had a bit of time to kill in La Spezia, I thought there's worse places to be. I'll pop out to Manarola and get a nice little fish panino or something. So yeah, if you suffered through my Twitter posts of Venezia last weekend, it's not going to get any easier this weekend, I think. But the weather will probably be dreadful, so that might make people who don't like me a little bit happy at least. But on the pitch, Moise Kean put Juve 1-0 up. Emmanuel Jazzy scored a belting goal to level it. And then Spezia only went and took the lead, but Juventus raced back through Federico Chiesa and Matthias de Ligt. And they won 3-2, their first domestic win of the season, Kevin. And you can really just put it down to Chiesa, right? It's just one of those, you look at Chiesa and think, yeah, he's the difference maker.
Yeah, and I was thinking of, the way he it was his determination to sort of rob Daniele Verde down in the corner flag, sort of wriggled his way into the box, lost the ball. Since then, somebody else on the Juventus team lost the ball, but then suddenly Chiesa had got it back, poked it through the legs of the defender, and then suddenly was sliding into equalise. And it was a determination at the top end of the pitch that sometimes I think we've seen going back a couple of years of how Juventus used to win games from the determination of, back end of the Bonucci's, the Chiellini, the Bozellis. And it's a bit, I just found it a bit odd as to how the tables have turned and how Chiesa has gone from being the standout performer for Fiorentina and arguably leaving to better his chances of silverware. And I know Dybala's there, and you think has Chiesa gone into a scenario where he could be doing exactly the same thing over the next couple of years for Juventus that he was with Fiorentina, because they are turning into a bit of a joke's not the right word, and everybody's going to hate me.
Say it, mate.
But they're just a bit of a disaster at the back. They're sticking with Szczesny, but some of the defending at the times was calamitous. I suppose they were slightly unlucky with the Giallorossi goal because it took a slight deflection. But when they let Yannis Santiste run away, Danilo should have taken care of him. And then Bonucci kind of looked a bit flat-footed, and there was a slight deflection off him. And I think we're going to see more of that this year. And I really think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, it's tough. if they do anything this year, Chiesa is going to be a big reason as to why. But I get what you mean. There's almost a bit of I remember when Piontek signed for Milan, and you called it about him and Cutrone just kind of getting in each other's way, and neither of them benefiting from the move. Look at both now, and you can see that that's happened. Maybe there's something similar happening at Juve with Chiesa, Dybala, and Kulusevski. Only one of those is going to win long term. It's not going to be Kulusevski, unfortunately, if what Sven-Goran Eriksson has said about Allegri is proven true. And between Chiesa and Dybala, if you're just going on the age of those two guys, you've got to say that you'd back Chiesa over Dybala, unfortunately. And I'm someone who likes Paulo Dybala very much.
Yeah, he looks like he's trying a bit too hard. Certainly against Venezia, I think he took the free kicks. It was almost, people said that Ronaldo being there kind of hindered Dybala, and it certainly looks that way when you look at how his scoring deteriorated while Ronaldo was there. And now he seems to be trying to take that mantle on, but in a way that actually doesn't benefit the group, because he sort of, and then he took one pop shot that ended up, in Rosette, or I think it went over the stand by the looks of it. And you wonder then if you've got other players that have been willing to kind of allow the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo to pop up winning goals, if they then start turning to Dybala, whether it won't help them.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were finishing that sentence there. Yeah, take the point completely. Anyway, we'll move quite swiftly through the next few games, because I'm mindful of the fact that we've got the preview podcast as well to record, and we're already quite late into the night. So elsewhere, Kev, I'll let you take your pick. There's Atalanta 2, Sassuolo 1, Roma 1, Udinese 0, or Torino 1, Lazio 1. What are you thinking?
Well, Atalanta, the only thing we're going to say about that is the wonderful team goal for Zappacosta.
Oh, it was beautiful, wasn't it? I tweeted about this. It was the most Atalanta goal you'll probably see this season, because they won the ball back because of that really high press through Gozens. Then Gozens gave it to Zapata. Zapata gave it to someone else. I think it went back to Gozens, then to someone else, then to Zapata, then to Zappacosta, and then he finished. And he more than made up for that miss against Salernitana over the weekend with that finish.
Yeah, your Twitter description was much better, where you kind of said, it's typical Atalanta because both wing backs are involved. There's a defensive midfielder striving forward.
Coop Miners, that's who it was, yeah.
And yeah, so it was just I think it's not a shame you got the points, but it would have been nice. It almost felt like it needed to sort of round off, rather than be a couple of minutes before half time in the first half. It could have done with being sort of 85, 88 minutes. But yeah, classic Atalanta. Then we've got, I can only remember Roma Udinese.
But just before we move on from Atalanta, I want to say Duvan Zapata in his last 6 Serie A games has 3 goals and 3 assists. So he's just continually brilliant. Domenico Berardi's goal against Atalanta as well was a beautiful long-range effort. And with the kind of form that Juan Musso has been in since joining Atalanta, it took something quite special to beat him like that. And then Robin Gosens getting a goal. He's just doing what he does, really. Roma Udinese, well, there's not that much to say about it, really, to be honest with you. Tammy Abraham stole my heart and many other people's hearts before the game by singing the Roma Inno, but not only singing it, it didn't seem like he was aware of what he was doing, but he was singing, he was like, Roma, Roma. It was beautiful. I loved it. And that is already one of the best hymns in Italian football. Not the best, but one of them for sure. And then he went on to score. I think it's his first goal at the Olimpico. It was a weird finish, though, because he somehow turned himself so that he had his back to goal inside the 6-yard box in an open goal. And I don't know why he got into that position. It just looked like he was trying to hold off a defender that wasn't there or something, but he finished it. And I'm very, very pleased for him. After the match, he spoke about how he already loves the Roma fans. He loves the club. They've made him feel like he's part of a family already. And you've got to take your hat off to just how much he's settling in the Eternal City, and I'm enjoying having him here in Italy. Torino-Lazio, Kev. It took a 91st minute penalty from Ciro Immobile to save a point after Marco Piazza had scored what looked to be his second straight winner in a 1-0 win for Toro, but wasn't to be.
No, and Torino can feel quite disappointed that they haven't walked away with the points, because Lazio didn't offer very much. It wasn't the best performance leading into the derby at the weekend, and they were quite fortunate with the penalty. Not that it wasn't a penalty, just that it was a moment of stupidity from whichever defender. I can't remember who it was. I only remember they were wearing a face mask, and I remember it wasn't Bremer. I just couldn't remember who it was. But yeah, they got away with one there. I don't actually think it will help them. Even though they lost, I think they're going to go into the derby still with a bit of trepidation. But it's a bit of a shame for Torino, because they're doing really well under Juric, and would have been 3 wins on the bounce. And they're looking good. I saw, probably just before watching this game, I saw the highlights of Cagliari, and it's that kind of contrast where they both were last year. And sort of Torino looked like they'd got their recruitment of a new coach spot on. And sort of the players are buying into his philosophy and his methods. And obviously we know that Cagliari have already changed coaches, and after their 2-0 defeat at home to Empoli, look like they're going to struggle.
Yeah, they do. Well, Empoli now a point ahead of Juventus. Cagliari still just 3 points off Juventus, despite having a terrible start. To Juve fans, I'm sorry. There was absolutely no need for that, but there you go. Cagliari are, of course, just on 2 points. Only Salernitana on 1 behind them. But thankfully, there are no more pointless teams in Serie A this season. But Kev, Empoli getting a win. Federico Di Francesco and Leo Stulaz scoring there. It's another big one for them. I mean, following up from that win over Juventus, they were probably always going to have a disappointing result to follow it. They, of course, were thumped by Samp 3-0, but now back on track.
Yeah, 100% record away from home. They got kind of lucky on the first goal, because whoever played the assist, they kind of fouled, and it absolutely threw the defender off, and then suddenly as they got up, they had a free run on goal. So Di Francesco got the ball, the ball was played over to Di Francesco, and he kind of just smashed it past the goalkeeper, and Stulak coming off the bench, and a couple of minutes later hitting a beautiful shot from range, which when you've just come off the bench, probably they're more likely to go into the crowd than they are into the top corner. But yeah, they look certainly like they're going to be the most likely of the promoted sides to stay up.
Agreed. Oh, well, do I agree? I don't know why I said agreed, because I'm not sure I do agree with that. I still have a feeling about Salernitana. I don't know why. I just have a feeling about them. Ribéry and Simi, It's just
they conceded 2 goals to Nikola Kalinic, so I don't know if you should feel that strongly about it.
You're right, but Simi hasn't hit the ground running yet. Just wait. Yeah, they did. Excuse me. Verona obviously went 2-0 up against Salernitana, but Salernitana at home in Salerno came back to the draw 2-2. And then the other game of the midweek round.
Did you see Liam Henderson's shot from the halfway line though that hit the bar?
I didn't.
Oh, yeah, I'll get on that for you.
Why have you gone? You've gone back to the Empoli game.
Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong game. I'm thinking of Verona. Anyway, I'll dig it out and show you.
Okay, thanks. And in the other game, Aaron Hickey got his first goal in Italian football as Bologna drew 2-2 with Genoa. And Marco Arnautovic also scored. Mattia Destra and Domenico Crescito scored for the Grifone. Aaron Hickey did the classic thing of scoring a goal, but then not knowing how to celebrate it because he never scores goals. And it was a bad celebration, and I just loved it. It was very, very endearing. But Kev, anything else to say about anything from the midweek round? I think we've touched on everything.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Right. Well, it was a little bit of a condensed pod, a different setup to what we're doing this season as well, but needs must. And patrons, if you are signed up to the €5 tier, we will be speaking to you very, very soon with the preview for round 6 of Serie A. If you're not a patron, do head over to patreon.com/Forza Italian Football, where you can sign up for as little as €2 a month, which is absolutely nothing, really. And you can go as high as €10 a month. But as I always say, the €5 tier is really, really good value for money. Last week, we had the exclusive Patreon newsletter, which I wrote from Venice. It was quite nice. It took you on a little tour of the floating city, and hopefully you felt like you were there with me on that trip. And I'll look to do the same this weekend when I go to Spezia. Fingers crossed I'll be able to get up to Cinque Terre. Manarola is probably one of my favorite places in the world. So if I get up there, I mean, there's a nice little fish shop that I've been to a few times. I made a trip specifically to go there. I was in Cinque Terre with my friends in June, and we were in Venezia or one of the others. And I was like, nah, I'm going to Manarola for an hour. I need to get a fish sandwich from this place. So I just binned them off. And yeah, there you go. Hopefully I'll get another one of those this weekend. So non-patrons will chat to you again on Sunday evening. Patrons will chat to you now. By the time you finished listening to this, go to Patreon and get the new preview pod, because that'll also be there. We'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.